Warning, this video contains spoilers for the entire Trolls franchise thus far. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ladies and gentle trolls, it's Ainsley the Fangirl, and welcome back to the Troll Hole. Today, I felt like sharing something very special. We all know what it's like to be in a fandom. You discover a particular book, movie, etc., become invested in the storyline, grow attached to the characters, and make a special little place in your heart for it. Even if you eventually outgrow that fandom, you can always look back on it and remember the good times. But what would you do if someone were to come along and ask you, why do you love this thing so much? What would you say? I've thought about this question a lot, and I finally managed to come up with my answer. There are millions of reasons why I love Trolls so much. The music, the animation, the comedy, but alas, there's not enough time in the world for all of them. So I'm gonna walk you all through the entire Trolls franchise as of 2022, breaking down some examples of the top 2 things I love about Trolls. Those things being the development of Branch and Poppy's love story and Poppy's character. I know the first one's pretty obvious, so let's get that out of the way. But first, a brief disclaimer. Please note that fighting in the comments section will not be tolerated. Negative comments will be deleted and repeat offenders may be restricted or even blocked. I understand that some people enjoy certain parts of the Trolls franchise more than others, and that's more than okay, but don't put someone else down just because they liked or didn't like one part more than another. Disagreement is fine and expected, but if you must say something, do it politely and respectfully. Everything I say from this point forward is based on a mixture of what I know to be canon in the Trolls universe and my own personal opinions from analyzing the storylines and characters. The Trolls fandom experience is different for everyone, and this is simply my perspective, which you are in no way obligated to wholeheartedly agree with. That said, let's dive in. Branch and Poppy weren't exactly enemies to lovers, more like frenemies to lovers. They never hated each other. Branch just didn't like people in general, and Poppy was literally the only person in the entire village who wouldn't give up on trying to include him. That persistence may very well have been one of the things that made Branch fall in love with her. He no doubt found it annoying at first, but he eventually realized she did it because she cared about him and didn't want him to feel left out. Remember, he was completely alone for 20 years. It's no wonder he kept all her cards. Fast forward, and the true colors scene came up. Most of us no doubt got all the feels when Branch sang that he loved Poppy, and she joined in. For a while, we were all convinced they were a thing. But then Trolls Holiday and Trolls The Beat Goes On happened, clearly thrusting them both into the dreaded friend zone. Naturally, we were confused. For the longest time, I pondered to myself why the DreamWorks writers would drop all the romantic hints, only to call Branch and Poppy mere friends for the next 4 years. Evidently, we were in for a classic slow burn trope. Why don't we take a look at that? Starting with true colors. In the moments before this scene, Poppy has been captured, betrayed, had her heart broken, and her entire race, as she knows it, has been condemned to die a miserable death at the hands of horrible, bloodthirsty Bergens, supposedly with no way out. At this point, she fully believes that she's been in way over her head and is bearing the burden of having failed her people. Even the happiest, most positive, sweetest people burn out occasionally, so it was perfectly understandable that Poppy would break down in a moment like this. I speak from experience when I say that it is hard to go around smiling all the time and being the light for other people. Sometimes you need to have a sad moment to let it all go and let someone else be your light. Poppy had never had anyone to cheer her up before, and she needed it badly. I like to think Branch saw a bit of himself in her at this point. He felt the same way when he lost his grandma, blaming himself for her downfall. He then did what he knew Poppy would do if their places had been reversed. If they were all gonna die, he was going to make sure she wouldn't go down without knowing someone loved her. However, he also understood that she had just been betrayed by someone she cared deeply about, so he knew she wouldn't respond well to any romantic gestures. So, when he's saying that he loved her, he most likely meant it as a friend, even if he was crushing on her at the time. Poppy was still shocked, naturally, because up till this point, he had never shown any kind of affection at all, platonic or romantic. Of course, she was so touched. The only thing she could do was sing along and share in his long-awaited happiness for however much time they had left. By the end of Trolls 1, they are definitely friends. Skip ahead to Trolls Holiday, and of course they once again establish their friendship, but it's still a little awkward. Branch is still getting used to being happy again, and Poppy is once again dragging him on a crazy adventure based completely on a whim. That's not bad writing, considering Trolls Holiday most likely takes place just a few weeks after the movie. It's simply where they are in their development. It's called slow burn for a reason. Since it centers more around Poppy and Bridget, there's not really much to talk about with Poppy and Branch's friendship in Trolls Holiday, other than the fact that that's exactly what it is, a budding friendship. Alright, time for the big one. Trolls The Beat Goes On. Most people, including myself, have a love-hate relationship with the show because, as great as it was as a whole, some episodes weren't as well written as others, specifically the ones featuring Cloud Guy. Hug Day was fine, but the plot pattern of Cloud Guy causing trouble for Branch, Poppy scolding Branch for quote-unquote being too hard on Cloud Guy, and Branch eventually learning a lesson from it all, got old the more it was used and painted Poppy in a bad light. Honestly, I think most of those episodes were probably just fillers. Don't get me wrong, I like Cloud Guy, but he could have been written better for the shows. Thankfully, Trollstopia only had 4 Cloud Guy episodes in seasons 1, 4, 6, and 7, and only the first one was all out bad. The second one was okay. The third one still had a few moments that made me angry at Cloud Guy, but it didn't put the wrong spin on Poppy like before. The last one was still kinda off in presenting Branch and Cloud Guy's nemesis-ship the way it actually is, but it wasn't terrible, so I was able to overlook it somewhat. Besides, the shows are aimed more at the younger fans who are less likely to pay attention to the finer details like character developments and smaller inconsistencies, so the creators tend to devote more detail to the movies since they have a bigger, more attentive audience. I can't blame them. Animation, songwriting, and world building are hard enough on their own. Imagine trying to do all that and more for 2, soon-to-be 3 movies, 2 holiday specials, and 2 multi-season spin-off shows, all to be released consistently over the span of 5 years and counting. All while also producing other franchises. Give them a break! Oop, we're getting off track. Let's get back to the point. At the beginning of Beat Goes On, Branch and Poppy were of course friends, but old habits die hard and they clashed a lot. They bickered, competed, and even threw hands a few times. But around season 4, things began to change. They started working together more, they bickered less, and when they did compete, it was friendly and playful. By the end of the series, they had evidently reached, as Poppy calls it in Trollstopia, the BFF zone. A lot of people tend to argue whether or not Beat Goes On is canon to the Trolls movies, since some of the episode timelines don't line up exactly, but I like to think it is. My logic is simple. It's quite possible that some episodes just weren't in chronological order. Do with that information what you will, that's just my personal belief on how it works. Even the Trolls art director, Tim Heights, confirmed that the shows are canon to the movies, but the development for them is treated differently. The way I interpreted his statement was, the shows can only go so far with new characters and world building because that's mainly the movie's job. My conclusion? Just because something happened in the shows that didn't happen in the movies, that doesn't mean it's not canon, and vice versa. The movies can only cover so much ground in so little time, so the shows pick up the slack without going too far. Anyway, in regards to friendship, Branch and Poppy were in the same place at the beginning of Trolls World Tour as they were at the end of Beat Goes On. Super close, evenly balanced, best friends. Right out of the gate, the moment Branch first appears in the film, he's singing about how he finally feels ready to tell Poppy he's in love with her. But then, of course, he chickens out, Poppy inadvertently friend-zones him, and the movie continues. Fast forward, after they fight over whether or not to go home after the Funk Trolls are attacked by the Rock Trolls, Branch blurts out that he cares more about Poppy than anybody else in the world. Now, Poppy's not stupid. You can tell by the look on her face she's figured out exactly what he means. Just before the camera fades back to Branch starting perfect for me, we catch a glimpse of Poppy burying her face in her hands, realizing how she's hurt him, even though she cannot be held responsible for ignoring his feelings since she didn't know he had them to begin with. So many people made Poppy out to be the bad guy here, and it makes me sick. How was she supposed to know she had friend-zoned him when he couldn't get the words out? She couldn't! There was misunderstanding on both sides. Piggybacking off of that, a lot of people seem to forget that there is such a thing as subconscious feelings. It is hard to take a hint when you're not actively looking for love. Again, speaking from experience. At first, it may seem odd that Poppy immediately fell for Branch once he confessed his feelings, But that's not the case. Sometimes people may confuse romantic feelings for a strong friendship. Poppy is an extremely loving person, and most likely thought that she was so fond of Branch because of everything they've been through together and how close they've grown. She's definitely a bit on the scatterbrained side, so it makes sense that she may have confused her feelings toward Branch until he said them out loud. Once again, Tim Heights confirmed on Twitter that Poppy did indeed have feelings for Branch, but most likely didn't pay enough attention to them so she could focus on her queen duties. It just goes to show, the longer you ignore your feelings, the harder they are to identify. At the end of Perfect for Me, when Branch snaps out of his daydream of dancing with Poppy, she is seen in real life singing the same song with him despite the distance between them, proving her feelings as well. Finally, everything is resolved, they save the day, and are reunited at last. Some people thought Poppy should have started by saying "I'm sorry," given that the last full conversation she had with Branch was a fight, but by this point they've both realized their fault in the matter. Poppy didn't listen, and Branch acted on impulse, blurting his feelings out at her, knowing she was in a vulnerable state of mind, with the fate of Trollmanity unraveling in her hands. And that, as her biggest supporter, his leaving would hurt her, whether she felt the same about him or not. Though it does not excuse the fact that they hurt each other, it explains that they each had their reasons for doing so. Poppy just wanted to help the other tribes and felt the need to prove herself a good queen. More on that later. And Branch, once again, didn't want to leave Poppy in a dangerous situation without first doing everything he could to try to help her, then, at the very least, letting her know he still cares when he finally had to walk away. He knew he couldn't convince her with words, so he left her to her own devices because there was no point in arguing further, especially since they had already said some things they'd end up regretting. They didn't want to dwell on that, so a mutual apology by reversing what they said in the fight was perfectly adequate. Poppy corrects herself, saying she loves how different she and Branch are, and Branch reiterates his feelings for her, saying it sincerely as opposed to the harshness he used earlier.
Branch, I love that we're different.
And I love you, Queen Poppy.
I love you too, Branch.
Poppy smiles excitedly, appearing to be pleasantly surprised, before saying she loves him back. Maybe she was afraid he changed his mind about her when he left, but after seeing him sacrifice himself for her and follow up with an "I love you," he proved that he does still care about her, even after all that chaos. The last time she cared about someone this much, the creep ran at the first sign of danger and didn't give two glitter farts about what would happen to her. Is it possible Poppy may have feared that Branch would leave her the same way Creep did? Most likely. When someone leaves you under certain circumstances, it's very easy to assume that the next person might do it too when put in the same situation. But when Branch came back to Poppy, literally throwing himself in harm's way to protect her, he proved his love isn't fragile. Next up, we have Trollstopia, another love-hate part of the franchise, mainly because a lot of the episodes in the middle seasons felt like fillers, and there's not very much Broppy content. I won't lie, it's true. Compared to the rest of the franchise, there's not a lot. But hear me out, it actually works. First of all, there's a bunch of brand new characters and infinite new friendships to grow between them, as we have seen in the last few seasons. It's perfectly reasonable that the series would focus on building those new developments and characters. Besides, what few moments we do get with Branch and Poppy, they are glowing with romance. With the exception of a few somewhat disappointing episodes, looking at you, Cloud Guy, and a little banter here and there, they almost never fight, they're so much more playful with each other, and while they're now almost equal as far as sociability goes, remember, Branch is still an introvert, there's a bit of a role reversal as well. In Beat Goes On, Branch was struggling to become a full-fledged troll again, and Poppy would often give him pep talks to help him through it. While he still has moments like that, Branch is steadier now and starting to return the favor, guiding Poppy through her anxiety over starting Trollstopia and new friendships. They don't need to call each other baby or lock lips every 5 seconds to prove they're a couple. If nothing else, the last episode of Season 5 definitely confirmed their love. Branch invites Poppy and some of their friends to his bunker for a game night, and they end up putting together a puzzle. Later, Branch starts to freak out when he can't find the last piece. No big deal, right? Not so. It is a big deal to him because he and his grandma used to do a puzzle every day and never left the table until they finished it. He continues the tradition to keep her memory alive, so it makes sense that he would want to find the missing piece so badly and wouldn't quit searching until he does. That reminds me, in Beat Goes On, Season 6, Episode 1, Branch and Creek are tied together at the hair as a result of Poppy trying to help them get along with each other, and at one point, when they're trying to think of something to do to pass the time, Branch suggests putting a puzzle together and says not to leave the table until the last piece is placed. Who'd have thought that that seemingly trivial moment would turn into one of the most beloved scenes in Trollstopia? Continuity, people! Anywho, he trashes the bunker in search of this piece until he finally looks in the box again and finds a note from his grandma saying she intentionally removed a piece from the box in hopes that Branch would one day learn that though not everything in life fits together like a puzzle, some pieces get lost and things fall apart, he would learn to see the friends around him who will help him pick up the pieces.
Branch? Are you okay?
I'm sorry, guys. Do you think you could help me put things back together?
Always.
Through that whole episode, Poppy keeps trying to ease Branch's anxiety over the missing piece, and rather than saying, "I told you so," when he finally learns to let it go, she reassures him that she will always be there for him. Moving on to a personal favorite of mine, we have Trolls Holiday in Harmony. This is the first installment of the Trolls franchise that focuses primarily on Branch and Poppy's relationship. Yes, World Tour was the starting point of their romance, but that was the subplot, not the main focus. Same with Trollstopia. They're still a couple, but it's not the main plot of the show. At last, they're front and center. It is obvious from the very beginning that these two are hair over heels in love. Poppy takes a very sweet moment to admire Branch's bow tie, and he goes right along with her plan, despite not fully understanding it. When they draw each other's names, Poppy acts all playful and flirty about it, while Branch gets flustered. Adorable, right? Poppy gets super excited about Branch's gift, and Branch goes absolutely nuts trying to get Poppy the best thing ever. He finally decides to build a machine that will style her hair, scrapbook, and make her favorite smoothie all at once, since she's such a multitasker. He knows her so well. Too bad it literally blew up in his face. Anyway, skipping ahead, they reveal that they got each other's names in an adorably awkward moment. Finally, Branch gives Poppy a scrapbook that essentially recaps their adventures from both of the movies. Precious! Then, she reveals her gift, which, in physical terms, is nothing. She then goes on to say that she simply couldn't think of the perfect thing for the coolest, sweetest, funniest, kindest, cutest, most weirdly prepared troll in the world. But to him, her words were more than enough. This stands out to me because, well, think about it. Poppy spent 20 years trying to get Branch to come out of his shell, showering him with scrapbooked cards, and the first time Branch opened up to her, he spoke beautiful poetry about something he liked about her. Her smile. It looks to me like words of affirmation may be Branch's love language, and giving gifts, specifically handmade ones, is Poppy's. Now the tables have once again been turned. Branch scrapbooked for Poppy, and Poppy used her words for Branch. Even the lyrics to Together Now seem to be a part of Poppy's gift because she starts off singing about how much Branch has grown and how lucky she is to have him in her life. God, they're so cute! This is a perfect example of how far their relationship has come.
How about another balloon ride over Troll Kingdom?
No multitasking?
Nope. Just you and me.
This little 30-minute special is exactly what we needed to really get Broppy on track. Now that DreamWorks has announced the release date for Trolls 3, November 17th, 2023, in case you missed it, we're in for a heck of a ride with these two. Now that we've addressed the Bergen in the room, here's the second reason why I love Trolls. Poppy's character. Fair warning, I might get a little vulnerable with this part, so y'all bear with me, please. See, I'm a sucker for movies with strong, bubbly female lead characters I can relate to. Truly, I don't think I've ever seen a character I have more in common with than Poppy. Where do I begin? Of course, at the beginning. When we first meet Poppy, she's relentlessly upbeat and positive. Maybe even a little naive, but keep in mind she's grown up sheltered, which isn't her fault. She was raised a literal princess in a happy, thriving community and never had to deal with any major problems until the Bergens came back. She handled it as well as she knew how, given the circumstances and her lack of experience, but eventually Branch had to come to her rescue when she got overwhelmed. From what I could see, Poppy's only major problem in the first Trolls was her sheltered sense of positivity, which, again, wasn't entirely her fault. Some people have to learn things the hard way, and she is no exception. She learned her lesson, and even though it took a few more adventures, and some influence from Branch, she eventually developed a sense of realistic optimism. Instead of hoping everything will work out on its own, she now prepares for her adventures. Her mentality is basically like, there's a 98% chance this won't work out, so we'll be ready for the worst case scenario, but there's still a 2% chance it'll be fine. And 2 is better than 0. On the other hand, her positivity has rubbed off on Branch a little bit, allowing him to think the same way instead of being pessimistic. I may not have gone on crazy, life-changing, going down in history adventures, but like Poppy, I too used to have a sheltered positivity and took the long way around to learning the realistic kind. I still struggle sometimes, and that's okay. There's always room for improvement, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Another thing about Poppy I love is her insecurity and her "I've got to know how to do everything myself because I won't always have someone to help me" mentality. That came out wrong. Let me try again. I love how she learns to deal with her insecurity. It's not really shown until Trolls The Beat Goes On Season 1, Episode 3, but Poppy, still new to the whole being queen thing, is bent on making sure she's a good enough queen for her people. She's constantly worried that her subjects are less than satisfied with her ruling, despite her friends and family reminding her she's doing fine. King Peppy himself said that while Poppy doesn't always come up with the best solution, she always comes up with one that works. He never expected his daughter to be perfect or fill his shoes. Poppy has already made history by befriending the Bergens and ending the feud with the Troll tribes, and yet she's still not sure if she's even worthy of the crown she was born into. No one has told her she's a bad queen, and Pop Trolls aren't really the rebellious type anyway, so she has nothing to worry about. She strives to keep this insecurity from getting to her and often hides it instead of healthily expressing it to someone. As I said earlier, she thinks, as queen, that she has to know how to do everything herself since there won't always be someone there to help her. But she's getting better about admitting when she needs help and when she's wrong. I have the same issues, mainly when it comes to my future and the idea of living independently as an adult. Poppy also has a problem with over-apologizing, as revealed in Trollstopia Season 6, Episode 2. When she offends or hurts someone, she wants to apologize with the utmost sincerity and care, because, again, she is an extremely loving person and doesn't want to hurt anybody. Of course, she could give the biggest, most genuine apology ever, and the other person might just shrug it off. The way the other person takes it is completely out of her hands. However, this leads her to overthink and believe that her apology wasn't as sincere as she thought, so she does everything she possibly can to prove her remorse. She said herself at the end of the episode that that's a hard truth for her to accept, but she'll get there. Let me say that again. She'll get there. She straight up admitted that she's not where she wants to be with herself yet, but she's actively making progress. Another moment similar to this was in Trollstopia Season 3, Episode 1. Poppy apologized for being unable to step out of her comfort zone and try something new after encouraging everyone else to, then vowed to do better herself. Poppy may be stubborn, but she knows when she's wrong and when she has a problem she's capable of fixing. Of course it won't happen overnight, but it's the fact that she's aware of it and making an effort to do better that counts. Again, I struggle with the same things. I could encourage someone for hours and help them explore outside their personal bubble, but don't get me started on my own anxiety, and if I hurt you in any way, I won't be able to stop saying sorry for at least the next 12 hours. I do my best to improve it every day, but it's a struggle I'll have to work with for the rest of my life. Will it get easier? Yes and no. It's gonna keep coming and going, but I'm learning to deal with it. Fight it on the bad days and indulge in the good ones. That's why I like that Poppy has these flaws. It proves that she's not perfect, she's real. So many other cartoons will create a quote-unquote optimistic character that really has a sense of toxic positivity and doesn't learn much, if anything, from their adventures. I love Poppy because I feel represented by her, and I know so many others do too. Yes, she has these conflicts, but it's the fact that she faces them head on that makes me love her. She helped Branch with his insecurities, and now he's turned around to help her. That shows how her actions affect the people she loves and inspires them to pass it on. I just hope that I have the same effect on the people in my life. Lastly, she sometimes tries too hard to be happy and put up a brave front, so it's difficult for her to let go of things. And people. In the Trollstopia finale, when DJ Suki is selected to go live with the Techno Trolls for a year as part of King Trollix's Trollstopia-inspired exchange program, Poppy resists going through with it at first because she doesn't want any of her friends to leave. But in the end, with the help of her new friends, she's able to let her go and recognize that as scary as big changes can be, when it's for a good cause, it's worth it. This season, and that episode specifically, could not have come out at a more perfect time. Just a day or two after this video is posted, I'll be leaving for college. I'm terrified out of my mind, and I can't bear to think about living away from my family even just for a little while. But I know it'll be worth it in the end. Like Poppy, I try not to let anyone see my sadness, especially when times start changing in ways I don't think I'm prepared for. But like Biggie said in Season 7, Episode 6, being sad helps me find the good things with the bad, and to find deeper connections with my friends. I've met so many wonderful people in this fandom, and even though we've only interacted through a screen, sharing fan art and plot theories, I am beyond grateful for every single one of you. It never ceases to amaze me how something as simple as a cartoon series about tiny, singing rainbow creatures with prehensile hair can bring so many people together. Like the citizens of Trollstopia, we are all like individual notes in a beautiful chord. The melody changes from time to time, and occasionally notes clash. But no matter what, we are all capable of making music in perfect harmony. So there you have it. That, among other reasons, is why I love Trolls. This franchise has helped and inspired me so much, and I hope it inspires you too. To the cast and crew of Trolls, thank you so much for this masterpiece. I can't wait to see where it goes from here.